Save on O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner. Get 2 cans of O'Reilly Brake Parts Cleaner for just $8. Valid in-store only at O'Reilly Auto Parts.
O'Reilly Auto Parts.
Gas mark 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm gonna cook a meal that's gonna make you mine. I'm turning up the oven, now we're ready to roast. When you touch me, honey, you'll love it the most. Come on and put me in a loving shoe.
This week's podcast is with the Belgian filmmaker Lukas Dhont. His 2018 feature debut, Girl, opened in Cannes and was subsequently nominated for the Best Picture Non-English Language Golden Globe Award 2019. His second feature, Close, won the Grand Prix at Cannes 2022 and is now nominated for Best International Feature Film at the 2023 Academy Awards. Close is available in UK and Ireland theatres from Friday, the 3rd of March 2023, and exclusively on MUBI from Friday, 21st April 2023. I was extremely excited to have Lukas on the Britflicks Podcast to talk about his new film. So without further ado, on to the interview. Essentially, it's an interview about the process of filmmaking. So you've made the film, so hopefully it should be plain sailing.
Well, maybe I'm a con artist and you're gonna uncover me now, but let's try.
That's not my job. I'm not here for the scandal.
Okay, that's good to know.
Okay, well, first off, small world, Kevin Janssens, who plays Peter in your film,
Yeah.
he plays the lead in a film I worked on, Squeal, the Latvian-Belgian co-production.
Yes. Wow. Small world. How was that? How was working with Kevin?
I only worked on the script side of it, so I wasn't there for production. It was a Russian to English translation, so for the screenplay, so I was brought in to sort of reshape it when it was in the English language.
Okay, wow. Okay, great.
You were the Grand Prix winner at Cannes 22 with Close.
Yeah.
Late last year, I spoke to Thomas Wright, who was in the Uncertain Regards section with The Stranger at Cannes last year. At the beginning of this year, I spoke to Matt Jenkins, who was in Director's Fortnight with Ennis Men. And only 12 months ago, I spoke to Julia Ducournau about Titane, which was a Palme d'Or winner. So I feel like I've got the full set now, speaking to you.
Amazing. I love that. All these people came before me.
They laid the path out before you. Thinking about the writing process of Close, what's the kernel of the idea that begins the journey that is the film we see today?
I think it's first. I think it's about finding a desire, finding what I feel was desired, and I think as I was a young person for whom, the body I was born in came with a lot of expectations that I feel I couldn't live up to.
Mm-hmm.
I feel I have this tendency to want to talk about gender right now. So if Girl was a piece about femininity, among other things, I realized I really wanted to make something about masculinity for the second one.
Mm-hmm.
I think when further thinking of it, I thought I really want to speak about young friendship, because I think when we listen to 13-year-old boys speak about each other, they speak with such tender, loving vocabulary, like they care for each other, they love each other, and they openly dare to say that. But then we also live in this world where the images that we get offered around masculinity so often are the opposite of that language, so often are the opposite of those tender 13-year-old testimonies. And I wonder why we have constructed or have pointed the camera more at the battlefield than we have been pointing it at men clinging on to one another. And I think it's this sort of starting desire that made me realize I wanted to make this film.
You paired up with Angelo again, that you worked with on Girl for the screenplay. How does that collaboration work? How do you make that? How does a screenplay come out of you two collaborating?
He makes my life incredibly difficult.
In what way?
Because he constantly asks questions that I don't immediately have the answers to.
Okay.
But which is actually why our collaboration works so well. Apart from the fact that he's also an amazing cook. And so I feel like while I'm just talking while I'm just letting my stream of consciousness out,
Yeah.
he's just calmly stirring the soup and just calmly, until then he'll ask me one question and I'll be completely taken off guard and I'll just be like, I think we are just, sometimes you have that with people and sometimes you don't. We're just a good match in the sense that we're very complementary. He's a very good dramaturge. And so I feel like he makes me wonder about things I hadn't necessarily wondered about before. We do a lot of talking.
Yeah.
I mean, we do a lot of talking. And I think our writing happens mostly in those conversations where we try to look for a shape that is as precise and as clear as possible for what we want to say.
Mm-hmm.
And that we spend a long time on. And then we each go our own ways and write scenes and then compare them. But
okay, so you'll write similar. You'll write the same scene each, or you'll write different scenes. And
yeah,
okay, that's interesting.
we write the same scene, and then we come together and we look at why the other wrote it that way, and why we compare our point of view on one and the same scene.
Can you give an example of a scene where it's almost like the perfect hybrid of the two of you?
I don't know if you know this, but I wanted to be a dancer before I wanted to be a filmmaker.
Okay.
So I usually tend to write silent scenes where people don't talk. And then Angela always confronts me with the fact that people actually do say things to one another. And I'm always like, no, they do not. People don't really speak. And he's like, yes, they do. So I feel like he is very much looking at ways to convey through spoken word, and I'm very much looking at ways to convey through physicality. I think, for example, when you look at a scene like the dinner scene, there's one big dinner scene in the second half of the film, which is a very important moment. I think that is a scene where both of our writing comes together in the terms of what do people say. How is emotion sparked to what is said? Who moves in what direction? I think it's an ideal combination of the two of us combined. Yeah.
It's a beautiful scene that basically the ghost of Remy just sits over the table, really, doesn't he?
Yeah. I mean, there's this sort of testimony of a teenager, of an 18-year-old expressing what he thinks he might do after his school ends. And of course, we know that is sort of, that there's a lot to project on that.
Yeah.
And also I think what is very, for us, important in that scene, it's a scene where we see an adult man publicly, express his emotion while his partner, the mother, is not really able to confront it. Is really in this armor and is really not allowing the world to see what is going on inside. Which I guess a lot of the times in the sort of construction would be the other way around.
Yeah, no, of course, no. Naturally, yeah, you would expect it to be the mother being, why aren't you upset? Whereas the idea of the opposite is quite captivating.
Yeah, exactly. And we really, that is when we debated on how these characters, deal with these big emotions. It's really something that we came at together, being like, okay, we really want to see that it in this form.
Well, obviously, Close is about the relationship of two young boys, and the way the story pans out. The two boys, Leo and Remy, the story then, the film then rests on Leo's shoulders quite a lot in terms of what we see, and that's some feature film debut, I think, from Eden. Is it Dabrin? Do I pronounce it?
Yeah, Eden Dabrin.
Given the importance of that role to the film, how did you find, or how did you cast for Leo?
I think we avoided thinking about casting for a long time because we were just like, writing. And then we realized, yeah, we actually gonna need two 13-year-olds at that very precise moment in time who will probably have never acted before.
Yeah.
And I went to all the schools in and around Brussels to really scout, young people and find young talents. But then something really peculiar happened because I was taking a train from Antwerp to Ghent.
Yeah.
And I was listening to music, and I looked next to me, and next to me there is this young angel, 12 years old, Aiden Dambrin, who is being very expressive, talking to his friends. And I was observing him, and I thought, wow, that is that is someone who really translates emotion through the eyes and through the face. And I went up to them, to the group, and I introduced myself. And as we made a first film that was very seen in Belgium, they knew who I was. And I asked Aiden if he was up to ever do a casting for cinema, which he was. He was he screamed. He was like very, very responsive to that. And from the moment we saw him together with Gustav, and we saw their chemistry, and we saw this unfearfulness for physicality between them, we realized that this very tender friendship would be very, very beautifully portrayed by them. And maybe there was even this possibility for friendship between them.
There is that tender friendship, but there's also a hell of an emotional depth to plummet for Leo's character. And obviously, he's still a young man. You're a man that's gone through this part of the life cycle, so you can kind of, not necessarily the grieving part and everything, but just literally that being that young man faced with whatever society throws at you. What were the conversations like with him about those those life experiences that he couldn't have maybe got already to portray them? Obviously, grieving a friend is something that I'm guessing he didn't have in his locker.
Well, I think that, to quote, and I don't know the exact quote, but I don't know if you know the French writer Edouard Louis.
No.
The French writer, he wrote The End of Eddie, among many other books. And there's a sentence in one of his books where he says, "It's so unfair that I am 16 and I feel like I have already lived 5 lives."
Okay.
And I feel that sentence goes for some people.
Mm-hmm.
And I feel like Aiden, first of all, is one of those people. And second of all, I think we underestimate sometimes the emotional worlds and the capacities to phrase and to be in touch with strong emotions in the universe of kids. When Aiden and Gustav read the script for this film, I think the conversation that we had around it shaped the film in so many ways. Because the way they reflected on grief and on loss, maybe in the most poetic sense of the word, was so powerful. And I think, at 13, you're still so connected to the heart.
Yeah.
You have a sort of pure, radical way of seeing the world and of expressing the world.
You know everything, don't you? You know everything.
Yeah. And as adults, I think sometimes we lose that because we try to say things that are accepted or expected. And sometimes we lose that very essential, radical way of expressing ourselves. So I strongly believe in the power of listening to 13-year-olds. And I think friendships are at the core of their lives. And I think they really understand what it means to push away and to be pushed away.
I guess as well at that young age, you're not into the realms of diplomacy, which is obviously what high school begins to teach you, which is there are unwritten rules that you're meant to fit into, as opposed to just follow your heart, which is, I guess, what you can do from years 0 to 12.
Yeah, and especially for men, I think young men, when we grow up, there is this point where we come to understand that in this society, men aren't supposed to look for intimacy among each other.
Mm.
They're told to look for intimacy through sex or through the romantic relationship, but they're told that independence is valued and competitiveness and being more stoic with the emotion, but that tenderness is not something to be nurtured or something to be looked for.
No, I see it all the time with friends and their children. It's like when they're going to high school, it's like, oh my God, is he? They kind of know what's coming, and they're like, is he prepared? And it's like,
yeah, exactly. And I think it's actually really, really important to try to keep nurturing that language of the heart, because we don't validate enough the importance of men for men.
Yeah. One last question for you. Can you give an example of a scene where Eden sort of took the performance somewhere where you just weren't ready, you weren't expecting it? Like he completely surprised you in terms of what he decided to do when the camera was rolling.
I think that there was this scene that I'm very proud of also in the bus in the very middle of the film.
Yeah.
It's a scene where they come from a school trip, and there's something really, it's a point where the tonality of the film starts to shift.
Yeah.
And the performance of those two actors there, of Eden and Leah, who of course had built this relationship and who had really worked together in the rehearsals for a long time, but the emotion and the emotional depth that they arrived at in that scene and working together and pushing each other to that point was really, really extraordinary for me as a director to see, because I think in that moment, they also so much directed each other. And I think Eden just dived in that moment in such a profound way that I remember all of the crew sitting, because also when you shoot on a bus, your whole crew is like behind seats, It's not a comfortable place to shoot. Anyone who wants to ride a bus scene, careful. It's not comfortable. And I just remember everyone just hiding behind the seats. And so my head was like down and I was looking at a monitor, but also at my crew. And I just felt in that bus, all the crew members just, sometimes you feel among your crew when something is felt, deeply, deeply felt. And I think we all felt it.
Okay. Well, look, a Belgian filmmaker got to be the best filmmaker of ever in the recent Sight and Sound magazine, and you are up for the Foreign Film Oscar, I believe.
Exactly, we are.
So is it good luck for being a double on Belgian's year?
That's so great. Chantal Akkerman is a very important filmmaker to me. Very, very important filmmaker. And I'm very proud to be a fellow Belgian filmmaker. And so, yeah, I mean, I feel very privileged. I know how much art there is out there that doesn't always get celebrated to that extent. And so I will take it. I will take it in, and I will celebrate.
I think you should. Look, it just gives me to say thank you very much for giving your time on the Britflicks podcast.
Thank you, Stuart. Happy to make it work.
Close is available in UK and Ireland theatres from Friday, the 3rd of March 2023, and exclusively on MUBI from Friday, 21st April 2023.